Before arriving in Israel, Secretary Baker got a first-hand look at tens of thousands of Kurdish refugees massed along the Turkish-Iraqi border. As Eyewitness newsman Ted Wayman reports, Baker admits the Allied airlift of supplies to the refugees is little more than a short-term solution.
U.S., British, and French planes continue dropping supplies to more than 1 million Kurdish refugees fleeing Iraq. Northern Iraq is mountainous, and thousands have died from hunger and exposure. Some refugees even show signs of burns, the result of napalm being dropped by Iraqi forces.
Saddam killed all of the children and women and old men, killed all of them. He is like animal.
Earlier today, U.S. Secretary of State James Baker toured the camps by helicopter.
Well, I think this is a terrible tragedy. It's quite apparent that the leadership in Iraq are in effect depopulating the northern part of Iraq, forcing people to flee. It's inhumane, it's brutal, and it's outrageous.
Later, Baker held a press conference from inside a Turkish refugee camp, which visually showed how massive the problem has become.
We cannot do this alone. We cannot do this along with the Turkish government. Together, we simply cannot cope with this mounting human tragedy.
I hope when he sees the condition of the refugees, the lack of food, medicine, shelter.
Alex DAWOODY is a Kurdish refugee who fled Iraq years ago. His family is among the thousands fleeing Saddam Hussein's forces today. DAWOODY knows the U.S. has no plans to get involved in his native country's civil unrest, but feels the Bush administration's hands-off policy will only help Saddam retain power.
I don't see really in the near future anything will happen. His army, most of his generals are loyal to him or afraid. They're not going to initiate any move.
I really don't think that the United States of America or the UN forces in general, and including the 30 countries, have any business at all getting involved in the internal affairs in Iraq.
BU professor and Middle East expert Farouk El-Baz says Baker's visit to the refugee camp is symbolic, but adds the U.S. will not have to actively get involved to reach its goals.
I personally believe that Saddam Hussein is history. He is over. His reign is finished. There is no question about it. And whether he will be removed by his own party or the party itself will be ejected, it's one of the two things are going to happen.
The U.S. has committed $10 million in supplies to the Kurdish refugees and continues to warn the Iraqi government not to interfere with the supply flights. Secretary Baker continues his diplomatic visit, meeting with Egyptian and Syrian leaders, all part of a process the White House is calling a prelude to peace negotiations for that region.